Hello, my name is Ramadan from Vincent Music, and today we're going to be looking at some of the basics of rhythm. So, as you may know, this is called a crotchet, or as the Americans call it, a quarter note, which is often what is found in your band book. So, what is a crotchet? You may think of it as being one beat, but that's not always the case. That's determined by what we call the time signature at the beginning of a piece of music. So, you have your clef, and then you'll have a key signature, for instance, but we don't need those today. But you'll have those, and then you'll have a time signature, such as 4, 4. So, we have, what do these numbers refer to? Well, this crotchet refers to the 4. If it's a 4 at the bottom, that means that one beat is a crotchet. Luckily, a lot of pieces of music have that 4 at the bottom, which means that this crotchet is one beat. So, if we have that 4 at the top, does that also mean crotchet? No, it doesn't. It means something different. It means that there are 4 of this in a bar. So, if we have 4 of that 4, that means we have 4 crotchets in a bar. So, if you have your piece of music, it will then, could look like this. So, we have our crotchets, but they're not the only rhythm, are they? There are lots of other rhythms that you can use them for. However, it's really useful because every crotchet is a beat when you play to keep those crotchets going in your head. So even if you're thinking of minims, such as this, also known as a half note, that's a minim, and we have 2 of them in a bar because a minim is 2 beats long, is 2 crotchets, double the length of the crotchet. We also have a semibreve, or a whole note, which is double the amount of a minim, which is double the amount of these, which means that it is 4 beats long in this time signature. So, we have all these rhythms, and we can put them together to make something like this. So if you were going to play this rhythm on your flute, or whatever instrument, you would think 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. And you're still thinking to have that minim in your head. So that's great. What if we want something that's smaller than one beat though? That is where we have something called quavers, or eighth notes. So a quaver is half the amount of a crotchet. So, how many would we have of them in a bar of 4/4 if the whole bar was full of quavers? Say it out loud. How many do you think? It's 8, because there are twice the amount of crotchets. How many crotchets do we have? We have 4 crotchets. So, we have a bar that could look like this, but a little bit straighter. And so, if you're going to play that, you would play 1, 2, 3, 4. Still counting, da, 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 da. When we count this in our heads, we'll often think of that second quaver as an and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Like so. If you didn't want a whole bar of quavers though, you just wanted some of them to be quavers, like this. And we'll get rid of this one too. How do you say this? Give it a try. I would think 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. So I sort of think of the ands in the 1 and the 3, but I'm mostly thinking of keeping that 4. So it would sound like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. However, not everything is in 4/4, is it? You can also have something with a different number. You can also have a different second number, but we're not going to going to worry about that today. What if we thought of a song like Happy Birthday, or anything that says waltz in the title? That means it's a very specific time signature. We still have crotchets. We still think in crotchets, but there are 3 of them. So this is called triple time. 4/4 is quadruple time. This is triple time. You can have 3 crotchets in a bar. This also applies to all of those other rhythms. So you would have, how many quavers would you have? You would have 6 quavers, because that is double 3. However, a minim doesn't really fit into a bar of 3/4, because you can only fit 3 crotchets. If you had a minim, you'd have a minim, and then you'd have to cut the minim in the middle. So to write this, we'll write something called a tie. So we have our bar, and then we have to separate the minim into the 2 parts and do a tie over the bar line, like so. But we don't really think of that. We more think, let's just have our minim and our crotchet. Now what if we wanted to do this twice? How do we think that would sound? Because remember, we're still subdividing our crotchets because we have that 4 there, which means we think in crotchets, the beats are crotchets. Let's have a think. Feel free to pause, and then I'll demonstrate how I would do it. So, I would think 1, 2, 3. So I'm still thinking in my head of those crotchets, but can't play them even though they're there. We can also have, you can have any rhythm in 3/4. You can also have some quavers. So, what if we had a rhythm like this? We're still thinking, so in our 3s, but what do we do with this? This second one, we think and. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Like so. Like so. We can also have other rhythms in 3/4, not just ones like this. If you want to, try and think of all the other rhythms you could fit into one bar of 3/4. However, there are more numbers than just 3 and 4. There's also, for instance, 2. So, if we wanted to have 2 in a bar, you just can. You can just have 2 in a bar. This is called duple time. It's sometimes often called march time because it's often used for marches. Sometimes they'll be in 4/4, but often they will be in 2/4. And you can have all kinds of rhythms in there too, like so. Now, how many quavers could you fit in a bar of 2/4? I've already given you a little bit of a clue. How many do you think? If you had 4, that's correct, because we can have 2 crotchets, and so therefore we can have 4 quavers, because quavers are half the length of crotchets. Yay! This, similar thing, we think 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So, however, have you ever thought that maybe you might want to play some more notes than the quavers? That's right, you can. So, especially because a crotchet can be anything. 2/4 could be 1, 2, 1, 2, or it could be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And those are very different, but every time you're still thinking in 4. And it's the same for any time signature. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's the same for 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do any of those, anytime. speed. But you can also have notes that are faster than quavers. You can have semi-quavers or 16th notes. You may not have to worry about this in your music just yet, but it's good to know they exist, that something could go even faster than a quaver. So, if it's a semi-quaver, it is half the length of a quaver. And how many quavers do we fit in a crotchet? That's right, it's 2. So, if a semiquaver is half the length of a crotchet, a semiquaver on its own looks like this. Just like one quaver on its own looks like this. And you can, band it together to make more of them. You can also band semiquavers together to make more of them. And so, if you wanted to have a whole bar full of semiquavers in a bar of 2/4, how many could you have? Pause, give yourself a minute. You could have 8, because we can have 2 crotchets, which is 4 quavers, 2 crotchets, 2 quavers per crotchet, and then we can split this out even more and have 4 semiquavers per crotchet, or 2 semiquavers per quaver. So, how would you think of this even? If this is just 1, 2, 1, 2, and then for our quavers, we think 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Our semiquavers, we think 1 meander, 2 meander, 1 meander, 2 meander. So our ands still line up. And this is our 1, which is the same across all of them. And then we just have some other things, just to fill it out, so we think about it. So if you were thinking of lots of semiquavers, 1 meander, 2 meander, 1 meander, 2 meander. Like so. Now that's a lot to think about, and you don't need to worry about everything. This is just a good overview of how some rhythms work. Hope to see you next time, and happy practicing and learning.